The sound cut through the air like a whip crack. Jasmine Wright's palm connected with his face, hard, deliberate, satisfying. His head snapped to the side. A red mark bloomed across his pale cheek. The entire restaurant froze. Phones came up. Record buttons flashed. Whispers erupted in Korean, too fast for Jasmine to catch, but she understood the tone. Shock, horror, disbelief. The man she'd just slapped turned back slowly, his dark eyes finding hers. He touched his cheek, almost curious, and then, impossibly, he smiled. "What's your name?" His voice was quiet, dangerous. "Jasmine." She ripped off her apron and threw it on his table, her hands shaking, but her voice steady. "And I quit." She turned and walked toward the elevator, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Behind her, she heard movement, chairs scraping, urgent voices, the unmistakable sound of weapons being drawn. "Sir, should we—" "No." His voice cut through everything. "Let her go." The elevator doors opened. Jasmine stepped inside. The doors closed. And then she couldn't breathe. Jasmine made it 3 blocks before her legs started shaking so badly she had to stop. She leaned against a convenience store wall, gasping for air. Her server uniform still damp with the red wine one of his associates had accidentally spilled on her an hour ago. What did I just do? What the hell did I just do? She fumbled for her phone with trembling fingers and ordered a taxi. The driver gave her a concerned look when she climbed in, probably because she looked like she'd just witnessed a murder. But he didn't ask questions. Jasmine gave him her address in halting Korean and stared out the window as Seoul's neon lights blurred past. Her tiny studio apartment in Itaewon had never looked so good. She unlocked the door, stumbled inside, and collapsed onto her bed without even taking off her shoes. For a long moment, she just lay there, staring at the water-stained ceiling, trying to process what had happened. She'd slapped a customer. Not just any customer. A man with bodyguards. A man who'd made the restaurant manager practically crawl. A man who clearly had the kind of power that made people afraid. And she'd walked away. "You're so stupid, Jasmine. So stupid." She sat up and pulled out her phone, intending to text her friend Maya, but the screen was already flooded with notifications. Instagram, Twitter, Kakao Talk, even her email. Her stomach dropped. She opened Instagram. The first post that came up made her blood run cold. Crazy server slaps customer at luxury restaurant. The video had been uploaded 30 minutes ago. It already had 50,000 views. Jasmine watched herself, watched the moment captured from 6 different angles. The slap, the apron throw, her walking away. The comments were exploding. Kim Jae-sung. The name meant nothing to Jasmine, but the comments made it clear she'd made a catastrophic mistake. "Hold up. Before we get into this unbelievably messy story, I need one tiny favor. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Show some support for your girl. I'll really appreciate it." "All right, thank you. Let's jump back in." Jasmine's hands started shaking again. She dropped the phone like it had burned her. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. But it was. And suddenly, lying in her cramped studio apartment with its peeling wallpaper and the sound of her neighbors arguing through the thin walls, Jasmine felt the weight of every decision that had brought her to this moment come crashing down. She'd come to Seoul 18 months ago with 2 suitcases and a dream that felt more like an escape plan. Atlanta had stopped feeling like home the day Marcus put his hands on her throat. She'd loved him once, or thought she had, but love had turned into control, control into violence, and violence into a night where she'd locked herself in the bathroom and called the police with a split lip and fear in her throat. She'd pressed charges. He'd been arrested. But his family had money, connections. lawyers who made her look like the unstable one. The case fell apart. Marcus walked free. And Jasmine realized she had two choices: stay in Atlanta and spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder, or leave. So she left. She'd always been fascinated by Korean culture, the music, the food, the dramas her grandmother used to watch. Her grandmother had died 2 years before Marcus, and Jasmine had inherited a small amount of money. Not much, but enough. Enough to enroll in a language school in Seoul, enough for a student visa, enough to start over. Seoul was supposed to be her fresh start, her redemption arc, the place where she'd finally become the woman she was meant to be: strong, independent, free. Instead, she'd spent 18 months being treated like she was invisible. The customers who treated her like trash. The endless microaggressions that added up day after day until she felt like she was carrying bricks on her shoulders. And tonight had been the breaking point. She'd served Kim Jae-sung and his associates for 40 minutes. She'd smiled through their snapping fingers, their dismissive tones, their casual cruelty. And then one of them had spilled wine on her deliberately. She'd seen the smirk. And they'd laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. But it was what she'd overheard that had shattered her last thread of patience. Jae-sung had been speaking Korean, probably assuming she wouldn't understand, that she was just another pretty face with no substance. And his words had been like acid on her skin. The help in this country is getting worse. Look at her. Probably some foreign charity case. These people come here thinking Korea owes them something. These people. As if she wasn't human. As if she was less than. As if her grandmother hadn't raised her to be proud, to stand tall, to never let anyone make her feel small. So she'd walked over to his table. And she'd said what needed to be said. And she'd slapped him. Jasmine sat on her bed now, watching the view count climb, 70,000, 90,000, 120,000, and felt sick. She clicked on Kim Jae-sung's name and found his Instagram profile. It was private, but his profile picture showed a man in an expensive suit standing in front of a luxury hotel. His bio was simple: Chairman, Hanul Group. She Googled Hanul Group. The search results made her stomach twist into knots. Hanul Group acquires 3 more luxury properties in Gangnam for $800 million. Kim Jae-sung, 35, named Korea's youngest billionaire. Controversy surrounds Hanul Group's private investment practices. Police investigation into Hanul Group drops due to lack of evidence. And then, buried 6 pages deep, an article from 3 years ago. Former prosecutor found dead after investigating Hanul Group connections to organized crime. Jasmine's blood turned to ice. Organized crime. She'd slapped a mob boss. She was dead. She was so soaking dead. Her phone buzzed with a call. Unknown number. She declined it. It rang again immediately. She declined again. Then a text came through. Miss Wright, we need to speak. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Someone will come to your address. Do not run. It will only make things worse. KJ's. Jasmine's hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped her phone. He knew where she lived. Of course he knew where she lived. He owned half of Seoul. Finding one foreign server would be child's play. She didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, watching the numbers on her clock change. 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and tried to think of a way out. She could run. Pack a bag and go to the airport right now. But her passport was American, and there would be records. He'd find her. She could go to the police. And say what? That she'd assaulted someone. And now she was afraid of consequences? They'd probably deport her themselves. She could hide. But where? She had no family here, no close friends who would risk harboring someone who'd made an enemy of Kim Jae-sung. No. She was trapped. By the time 8 a.m. rolled around, Jasmine had made peace with whatever was about to happen. She'd showered, braided her hair, put on jeans and a simple black shirt. If she was going to face her fate, she'd do it with dignity. At exactly 9 a.m., there was a knock on her door. 3 sharp raps. Pause. 3 more. Jasmine's heart hammered in her chest. She walked to the door, looked through the peephole, and felt her knees go weak. 3 men stood in the hallway. 2 of them were built like tanks, security clearly with the bulge of concealed weapons visible under their suit jackets. And between them stood Kim Jae-sung himself. He was wearing a different suit today, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, and his hair was styled with that effortless perfection that came from having a personal stylist. The red mark from her slap was still faintly visible on his cheek, and somehow that made him look more dangerous, not less. He looked directly at the peephole, as if he knew she was watching. "Good morning, Miss Wright," he said, his voice muffled but clear through the door. "I believe we have some things to discuss. May I come in? Or would you prefer to have this conversation in the hallway where your neighbors can hear?" Jasmine's hand trembled as she unlocked the door and opened it slowly, keeping the chain lock engaged. She peered through the gap, meeting Jae-sung's eyes directly, even though every instinct screamed at her to look away. "What do you want?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Jae-sung tilted his head slightly, studying her with the same unsettling intensity he'd had in the elevator. That look that made her feel like a butterfly pinned to a board. "I told you we need to talk, and this conversation requires privacy." He glanced down the hallway where an elderly woman had just stepped out of her apartment and was openly staring. "Your neighbors are already curious. Shall we give them more to talk about?" Jasmine's jaw clenched. He was right. Mrs. Park from 3B was already pulling out her phone, probably to text the building's group chat about the strange men at the foreign girl's door. The last thing Jasmine needed was more attention. She closed the door, unhooked the chain, and opened it wider. Jae-sung stepped inside with the confidence of a man who owned every space he entered. His 2 bodyguards followed. And suddenly Jasmine's tiny studio apartment felt microscopic. The 3 men filled the space completely, their presence, their cologne, their silent threat. "You can wait outside," Jae-sung said to his guards without looking at them. "Sir, we should... outside." His tone left no room for argument. The 2 men exchanged glances but obeyed, stepping back into the hallway and closing the door behind them. And then Jasmine was alone with the man she'd slapped, in a space barely large enough for her single bed, her small desk, and her portable cooking burner. Jae-sung looked around the apartment with an unreadable expression. His gaze lingered on the pile of Korean language textbooks on her desk, the kimchi jjigae she'd made last night still sitting in a pot on the burner, the photograph of her grandmother taped to the wall above her bed. "You live here," he said. And it wasn't a question. It was an observation laced with something that might have been surprise or possibly disdain. "The rent is cheap," Jasmine said defensively, crossing her arms. "And it's close to the restaurant. Was close to the restaurant." Jae-sung turned to face her fully, and in the morning light streaming through her small window, she could see details she'd missed last night. The faint scar above his left eyebrow, the way his suit probably cost more than 6 months of her rent. The cold calculation in his eyes that said he was always 3 steps ahead of everyone around him. "You've seen the videos," he said. It wasn't a question, but Jasmine nodded anyway. "Then you know the situation you're in." He pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. 200,000 views across all platforms. Your face is everywhere. People are sharing your information, where you work, speculation about your visa status, debates about whether you should be deported. You're viral, Miss Wright. Congratulations. Jasmine felt sick. "What do you want from me?" I want to offer you a choice, Jae-sung said simply. He pocketed his phone and clasped his hands behind his back, looking for all the world like a CEO delivering a business proposal, rather than a man who'd tracked down the woman who'd assaulted him. Option 1. I do nothing. I let the videos spread. I let public opinion run its course. Immigration will investigate your visa status, and we both know you've been working more than the legal 20 hours per week for students. You'll be deported within the month. Jasmine's nails dug into her palms. And option 2? Option 2, you work for me. The words hung in the air like a noose. Work for you, Jasmine repeated flatly. As what? Your servant? Your punching bag? Something flickered in Jae-sung's expression. Amusement, maybe, or respect. As my personal assistant. For 6 months. You'll attend events with me, serve at private dinners, accompany me to meetings. You'll be available when I need you, where I need you. That sounds exactly like being your servant. Perhaps, he acknowledged, but at the end of 6 months, if you fulfill your obligations satisfactorily, I'll make all of this disappear. The videos, the immigration issues, the damage to your reputation. I'll even provide you with a letter of recommendation that will open any door in Seoul. He paused, his dark eyes boring into hers. You want to open your own restaurant someday, don't you? I can make that happen. Jasmine's breath caught. How do you... I know everything about my employees, Miss Wright, including their dreams. He stepped closer, and Jasmine found herself backed against her small kitchen counter with nowhere to go. You came to Korea to escape something. You're working illegally to save money. You cook kimchi jjigae in your apartment because you can't afford to eat out. You study Korean 3 hours a night because you're determined to belong here. His voice dropped lower. And last night, someone finally pushed you too far, and you snapped. You slapped me because you're tired of being treated like you're nothing. Jasmine's throat felt tight. You deserved it. I did, he agreed, and his admission shocked her into silence. I spoke about you like you weren't human, like you were beneath my notice, and you reminded me that respect isn't given based on wealth or power. It's earned, or it should be. He reached up and touched the fading mark on his cheek, and for just a moment, Jasmine saw something flicker behind his carefully maintained mask. Something almost human. That slap, he continued quietly, was the first honest thing anyone has done to me in 10 years. Everyone around me lies. They smile and bow and agree with everything I say because they're afraid. But you? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You looked me in the eye and held me accountable. Do you have any idea how rare that is? So this is what? Jasmine shot back, anger rising to cover her confusion. Some twisted way of keeping me close because I'm novelty? Because I'm the one who wasn't afraid of you? Partly, Jae-sung said honestly. But mostly, Miss Wright. This is about debt. In my world, when someone disrespects me publicly, there are consequences. You cost me face, reputation. And that means you owe me. The question is how you're going to pay that debt. He pulled a document from his inner jacket pocket and laid it on her kitchen counter. It was a contract, printed on expensive paper, filled with legal terms in both Korean and English. 6 months, he said, all terms clearly outlined. Your duties, your compensation, yes, you'll be paid well, and the terms of your release at the end. Sign this, and I'll take care of everything. The videos will disappear. Your visa problems will be resolved. You'll have a chance to build the life you came to Korea looking for. And if I don't sign? Jasmine asked, even though she already knew the answer. Jae-sung's expression hardened. Then you're on your own, and I think we both know how that ends. Jasmine stared at the contract, her mind racing. This was insane. Working for a man who was clearly connected to organized crime, who had the kind of power that made people disappear, who could ruin her life with a single phone call. But what choice did she have? She'd come to Korea to escape one trap, and she'd walked straight into another. "I need time to think," she said. "You have 60 seconds, Jae-sung replied calmly. "I'm a busy man, Miss Wright. And this offer expires the moment I walk out that door." 60 seconds. Jasmine's heart hammered. She looked at the contract, then at Jae-sung, then at the photograph of her grandmother on the wall. Grandma Rose, who'd survived poverty and discrimination and a move across an ocean to give her family a better life. Grandma Rose, who'd taught Jasmine to be strong, to stand tall, to never let anyone break her. "What would you do, Grandma?" But she already knew the answer. Her grandmother would survive. She always did. And survival sometimes meant making impossible choices. Jasmine picked up the pen lying next to the contract. 6 months, she said, meeting Jae-sung's eyes with all the defiance she could muster. "And at the end, you leave me alone. Forever." "Agreed." He watched as she signed her name at the bottom of the contract, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he picked up the document, folded it precisely, and tucked it back into his jacket. "Welcome to Hanul Group, Miss Wright. Your first assignment begins tonight." "Tonight?" Jasmine's stomach dropped. "I'm hosting a private dinner for some business associates. You'll serve. 8 p.m. I'll send a car for you at 7. He moved toward the door, then paused and looked back at her. "And Miss Wright, wear something presentable. These are important people. First impressions matter." He left without waiting for a response, his bodyguards falling into step behind him. The door closed, and Jasmine was alone again in her tiny apartment, staring at the space where he'd stood, trying to process what had just happened. She'd just sold herself to the devil. And she had no idea if she'd ever be free again. The dress arrived at 5 p.m. Jasmine had spent the day in a daze, alternating between panic and numbness. She'd tried to research Kim Jae-sung more thoroughly, but the internet was frustratingly vague. There were business articles about his legitimate holdings, hotels, restaurants, real estate, but nothing concrete about the organized crime connections that one buried article had mentioned. Either he was clean, or he was very, very good at hiding the dirt. The knock on her door made her jump. She opened it to find a woman in her 50s, elegantly dressed, holding a garment bag and a makeup case. "Miss Wright?" the woman asked in accented but clear English. "I'm Mrs. Han. Mr. Kim sent me to help you prepare for tonight." "I don't need help," Jasmine started, but Mrs. Han was already inside, hanging the garment bag on the back of the door and opening her makeup case with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "Mr. Kim's orders," Mrs. Han said firmly. "Now let's see what we're working with." The next 2 hours were a whirlwind. Mrs. Han unzipped the garment bag to reveal a dress that made Jasmine's breath catch. Deep emerald green silk that shimmered in the light, with a fitted bodice and a skirt that would fall just below her knees. Elegant, but not ostentatious. Expensive, but not flashy. "It's beautiful," Jasmine whispered despite herself. "Mr. Kim has excellent taste," Mrs. Han said, already steering Jasmine toward her small bathroom. "Now shower. Use the products I brought. They're much better than whatever you have. Then we'll do your hair and makeup." Jasmine wanted to protest, wanted to assert some kind of control over this situation, but Mrs. Han had the kind of maternal authority that made arguing feel pointless. So she showered with the luxury products that smelled like jasmine and honey and let Mrs. Han work her magic. By the time 6:45 p.m. rolled around, Jasmine barely recognized herself in the mirror. Her natural hair had been styled in elegant bantu knots that framed her face. Mrs. Han had done her makeup with a light touch, highlighting her cheekbones, making her brown eyes luminous, painting her lips a subtle rose. The green dress fit perfectly, hugging her curves in a way that made her feel powerful, rather than exposed. She looked like she belonged in Jae-sung's world. That thought terrified her. "You're beautiful," Mrs. Han said, packing up her supplies. "Remember, tonight you serve with grace. You don't speak unless spoken to. You smile politely, but not too warmly. You're invisible until Mr. Kim needs you." "Invisible," Jasmine repeated. Right. Just like she'd been at the restaurant, just like she'd been her whole life in Korea. Visible enough to be stared at, invisible enough to be dismissed. Mrs. Han softened, reaching out to squeeze Jasmine's hand. "I know this is difficult, but Mr. Kim, he's not a cruel man. Demanding, yes. Dangerous, certainly. But not needlessly cruel. If you do your job well, he'll keep his word." Before Jasmine could ask what she meant, there was a knock at the door. The car had arrived. The driver was one of Jae-sung's bodyguards from this morning, the taller one with the scar on his jaw. He didn't speak, just opened the back door of a sleek black Mercedes and waited. Jasmine climbed in, and the door closed with an expensive thunk that sounded like a vault ceiling. They drove through Seoul as the sun set, the city transforming into a sea of neon and lights. Jasmine watched Gangnam pass by outside the window. Luxury boutiques, high-end restaurants, glass towers that seemed to pierce the sky. This was the Seoul she'd dreamed about when she was still in Atlanta, the Seoul that had seemed glamorous and full of possibility. Now, it just felt dangerous. The car pulled up to a building that looked like it had been ripped from an architectural magazine, all glass and steel and modern lines, with a discreet sign that read, "Hanul Private Club," in both Korean and English. The bodyguard opened her door. "Fifth floor. Mr. Kim is expecting you." Jasmine stepped out on unsteady legs. The heels Mrs. Han had provided were higher than anything she normally wore, and made her way inside. The lobby was all marble and soft lighting, with a concierge who directed her to a private elevator without even asking her name. He told them I was coming. The elevator ascended smoothly, and Jasmine watched the numbers climb, 2, 3, 4, 5, each floor taking her further from safety and deeper into Jae-sung's world. The doors opened onto a scene that took her breath away. The fifth floor was a single massive space, a penthouse suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking all of Seoul. The city spread out below like a carpet of stars, and in the center of the room, a table had been set for 8 people. Crystal glasses caught the light. White orchids adorned the table. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers. And standing by the windows, looking out at his kingdom, was Kim Jae-sung. He turned when he heard the elevator, and something shifted in his expression when he saw her. His eyes traveled from her face to her dress, to her heels, and back again, and for a moment, just a moment, Jasmine saw what might have been approval. "Miss Wright," he said, crossing the room toward her, "you look acceptable." Acceptable. Jasmine bit back a sharp retort. 6 months. She just had to survive 6 months. "Thank you," she said instead, her voice carefully neutral. Jae-sung gestured toward a side table where serving equipment had been laid out. Wine, glasses, plates. "Tonight's dinner is important. I'm meeting with investors from China and Japan. They're considering a partnership that would expand Hanul Group's reach into new markets. Your job is simple. Serve efficiently, refill glasses before they're empty, and don't speak." "Invisible," Jasmine said. "Exactly." He studied her face for a long moment. "Can you do this?" Jasmine thought about the videos still circulating online, about her visa status, about her tiny apartment, and her dwindling savings, and her dream of opening a restaurant that felt further away than ever. "Yes," she said. "Good." Jae-sung checked his watch. Rolex, of course. "They'll be here in 10 minutes. Remember what I said. Serve with grace. And Miss Wright? He stepped closer, his voice dropping low. These men are not like the customers at the restaurant. They're dangerous. If they speak to you, be polite but brief. If they touch you, his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Tell me immediately. Jasmine blinked, surprised by the protective edge in his voice. I thought I was supposed to be invisible. Invisible doesn't mean vulnerable, Jae-sung said curtly. Then he turned away, the moment of unexpected concern vanishing behind his usual cold mask. Take your position. They're arriving. The next 3 hours were the longest of Jasmine's life. The guests arrived in a wave of expensive cologne and casual arrogance. There were 6 of them, 4 men and 2 women, all dressed in designer clothes that probably cost more than Jasmine made in a year. They spoke in a mixture of Korean, Mandarin, and Japanese, switching between languages so fluidly that Jasmine's head spun trying to follow. She served the first course, delicate appetizers that had been prepared by a chef who'd arrived earlier and departed before the guests showed up. She poured wine. She cleared plates. She moved through the room like a ghost, just as Mrs. Han had instructed. And she listened. The conversation was business at first, talk of profit margins and market expansion and regulatory obstacles. But as the wine flowed and the evening progressed, the veneer of civility began to crack. The prosecutor in Busan is becoming a problem, one of the Chinese investors said in Mandarin, probably assuming Jasmine wouldn't understand. She'd studied Mandarin for 2 years in college, just enough to catch the gist. He's asking questions about our shipping routes. He'll be taken care of, Jae-sung replied smoothly in the same language. These things resolve themselves when the right pressure is applied. Taken care of. Jasmine's hand trembled slightly as she refilled a water glass. She didn't want to know what that meant. And what about your little scandal? One of the Japanese women asked, switching to Korean with a smirk. I saw the videos. A server slapping you? That's not a good look, Jae-sung-si. Makes you seem weak. Jasmine froze mid-pour. Jae-sung's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. The situation has been handled. Has it? The woman's eyes slid to Jasmine with sharp calculation. Is this her? The one who slapped you? Every head at the table turned toward Jasmine. She felt pinned by their collective gaze, predatory, curious, assessing. Yes, Jae-sung said simply. The room erupted in laughter. Not cruel laughter exactly, but the kind of amusement rich people had when observing something they considered beneath them. You're making her serve you? One of the Chinese men grinned. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Putting her in her place. Teaching her respect, another agreed. Jasmine's fingers tightened around the wine bottle. She wanted to throw it, wanted to scream, wanted to walk out, but she forced herself to stay calm, to keep her face neutral, to be invisible. She's learning, Jae-sung said, his tone giving nothing away. Aren't you Miss Right? It was the first time he'd addressed her directly all night. Jasmine met his eyes across the table, searching for something, mockery, cruelty, satisfaction, but his expression was unreadable. Yes, sir, she said quietly. Good girl, one of the Japanese men said with a leer that made Jasmine's skin crawl. Maybe after dinner she can learn some other things. She's under my protection, Jae-sung cut him off, his voice like ice. And I don't share. The man raised his hands in mock surrender, but the tension in the room had shifted. The other guests exchanged glances, some amused, some speculative. Jasmine didn't understand what had just happened, but she felt the weight of it anyway. The dinner continued. Courses came and went. The conversation drifted from business to gossip to thinly veiled threats about competitors. Jasmine served through it all, her feet aching in the high heels, her smile fixed in place like a mask. Finally, mercifully, the evening wound down. The guests departed one by one, loaded into luxury cars that would take them to hotels or clubs or wherever powerful people went at midnight. Jae-sung walked them out, playing the perfect host, and then it was just the two of them in the massive penthouse. Jasmine was clearing the table when Jae-sung returned. She felt him watching her, but didn't look up. "You did well tonight," he said. Jasmine's hands stilled on a wine glass. "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" "It's supposed to be the truth." She finally looked at him. "They laughed at me. Your guests laughed about you humiliating me, and you just sat there." "I sat there," Jae-sung agreed, "because that's how this works. They needed to see you humbled. They needed to believe I'd reasserted my authority." He crossed the room toward her, and Jasmine was suddenly very aware that they were alone, high above the city, with no one to hear if she screamed. "But I also made it clear that you're under my protection. That man who suggested you serve him in other ways, he won't bother you again." "How generous," Jasmine said bitterly. "It is, actually." Jae-sung stopped a few feet away from her, his dark eyes searching her face. "In my world, Miss Wright, women like you are disposable. But I told them you're mine. Do you understand what that means? That I'm your property? That you're safe." He said it with such intensity that Jasmine actually believed him. "For the next 6 months, no one will touch you. No one will hurt you. As long as you're under my protection, you're untouchable." Jasmine set down the wine glass before she dropped it. "And what happens when the 6 months are up?" Jae-sung's expression shifted, something almost like regret flickering across his features. "Then you're free, just like I promised." He moved to the window, looking out at Seoul spread below like a glittering sea. "Go home, Miss Wright. My driver will take you. Your next assignment is Friday night." Jasmine should have left immediately, should have grabbed her purse and run for the elevator, but something made her pause. "Why did you really bring me here tonight?" she asked. Jae-sung didn't turn around. His reflection in the glass was ghostly, ethereal against the backdrop of Seoul's lights. When he finally spoke, his voice was so quiet Jasmine almost didn't hear it. "Because everyone needs to believe I've broken you," he said. "And if they believe that, they won't look closer. They won't ask questions. They won't wonder why I'm keeping you close instead of destroying you." He paused, and his next words sent a chill down Jasmine's spine. "In my world, Miss Wright, perception is everything. Tonight, I showed them what they expected to see. A powerful man putting an insolent woman in her place." "But that's not what this is?" Jasmine asked, taking a step closer, despite every instinct telling her to maintain distance. Jae-sung turned to face her, and in the dim lighting of the penthouse, he looked almost vulnerable, almost human. "I don't know what this is yet," he admitted. "But I know that when you slapped me, something shifted. For 10 years, I've been the chairman, the untouchable, the feared. And then you—" He stopped, seeming to catch himself. "Go home. We'll talk more later." Jasmine wanted to push, wanted to demand answers, but exhaustion was setting in. The adrenaline that had carried her through the evening was fading, leaving her shaky and overwhelmed. She grabbed her purse and headed for the elevator. "Miss Wright." She paused, looking back. Jae-sung's expression had returned to its usual cold mask, but something lingered in his eyes. "You wore the dress well. Keep it." The elevator doors closed before Jasmine could respond. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of impossible contrasts. By day, Jasmine lived her normal life, or what remained of it. She'd been fired from Moonlight Terrace, obviously, but the severance pay that mysteriously appeared in her bank account was triple what she should have received. Jae-sung's work, she assumed. The videos had mostly disappeared from the internet, scrubbed clean by whatever digital magic he commanded. She still got stares when she rode the subway, still heard whispers, but the intensity had faded. By night, she entered Jae-sung's world. Friday night was a gallery opening in Gangnam. Jasmine served champagne to art collectors who discussed paintings worth more than her life while she stood silent in a black dress that made her feel like a shadow. Tuesday night was a private poker game in a hotel suite. She dealt cards and refilled drinks, while men bet amounts that could have fed families for years. One of them tried to touch her, his hand sliding too high up her thigh as she leaned over to collect chips. And Jae-sung's voice had cut through the cigar smoke like a blade. "Touch her again, and I'll take your hand." The man had apologized, to Jae-sung, not to her. Thursday night was a business dinner at an exclusive restaurant where the chef personally served each course. Jasmine stood behind Jae-sung's chair, ready to anticipate his needs before he asked. She was learning to read him, the slight tightening of his jaw when someone said something that displeased him, the way his fingers drummed once against the table when he was about to make a power move, the microscopic shift in his posture when he was bored. And he was learning her too. She could feel it. He'd started asking her questions during the car rides between events. Nothing too personal at first, what she thought of the guests, whether she'd noticed anything unusual, her observations about the business deals being discussed. Jasmine answered carefully, never revealing too much, always maintaining that professional distance. But distance was becoming harder to maintain, because the more time she spent in Jae-sung's orbit, the more she saw glimpses of the man beneath the monster, like the night they'd left a charity gala and passed a homeless woman huddled in a doorway. Jae-sung had stopped, handed the woman an envelope, and walked away without a word. Later, Jasmine had seen him check his phone, a text confirming the woman had been placed in a shelter and connected with job training programs, or the night one of his business associates had used a racial slur, not directed at Jasmine, but at a waiter who'd spilled wine. And Jae-sung had gone perfectly still. The meeting had ended abruptly. The associate was no longer welcome in Jae-sung's establishments. No explanation given. These moments confused Jasmine more than anything else. They would have been easier if he'd been purely evil, if she could have simply hated him and counted down the days until her 6 months were up. But he wasn't pure evil. He was complicated, dangerous, ruthless when he needed to be, but not entirely without principle. And that scared her more than anything. It was week 3 when everything changed. The message came at 2:47 a.m., pulling Jasmine from restless sleep. "Miss Wright, your contract is terminated effective immediately. All obligations fulfilled. Your visa has been corrected. You're now on a proper work visa, valid for 2 years. The videos are permanently deleted. You're free. I've transferred 6 months' salary to your account as agreed. You owe me nothing. Don't contact me again. KJS." Jasmine stared at her phone screen, reading and rereading the words until they blurred. Free. She was free. So why did her chest feel like someone had carved out her heart? She tried calling him. The number was disconnected. She went to his office building the next day. Security wouldn't even let her get past the lobby. Jasmine spent the next week in a fog. She looked at apartments, applied for cooking jobs, tried to rebuild the life she'd come to Korea for. But everything felt hollow, wrong, like she was going through the motions of living without actually being alive. She told herself it was for the best, that Jae-sung had done the right thing by cutting her loose before she got in too deep, before his world swallowed her whole. But she knew she was lying to herself. She missed him. God help her, she missed the mob boss who'd blackmailed her. The next day, the most unexpected happened. Jasmine was walking home from a job interview at a French restaurant in Gangnam. They'd been impressed by her resume, intrigued by her fusion cooking ideas. She was feeling almost hopeful for the first time in days. She didn't notice the black van until it was too late. Two men grabbed her from behind, one clamping a cloth over her mouth and nose. The world tilted, chemical sweetness flooding her senses, and then nothing. Jasmine woke to darkness and the smell of concrete and mildew. Her head pounded. Her wrists were zip-tied behind her back, secured to a metal chair. She blinked, trying to clear her vision, and gradually made out shapes in the dim light filtering through a high window. A warehouse, abandoned judging by the rust and debris. "She's awake!" The voice spoke Korean with a Busan accent, rough, amused. "Tell the boss." Footsteps approached. A man crouched in front of her, his face scarred and cruel. Jasmine Wright, the American girl who slapped the chairman. "Do you know how valuable you are?" Jasmine's mouth was dry, but she forced words out. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie." He grabbed her face, forcing her to look at him. "Kim Jae-sung cut you loose, but we've been watching. We know he cares about you, and that makes you the perfect leverage." "He doesn't care about me," Jasmine said, trying to keep her voice steady even as fear clawed at her throat. "He fired me. We're nothing to each other." The man laughed. "Then why did he have men watching your apartment? Why did he threaten 3 different gangs who got too close to you? You think you're free, but he's been protecting you from the shadows." He stood, dusting off his knees. "Now he's going to pay for that protection one way or another." Terror turned to something else, a desperate, wild hope. "He's been protecting me?" Before she could process that information, the warehouse doors exploded inward. The next 60 seconds were violence incarnate. Gunfire erupted. Men shouted. Jasmine squeezed her eyes shut, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst. Through the chaos, she heard a voice, cold, lethal, unmistakable. "Where is she?" Jae-sung. More gunfire. A scream cut short. The wet sound of impact, bone and flesh and brutal efficiency. Jasmine kept her eyes closed, not wanting to see, not wanting to know what kind of monster he had to become to save her. And then hands were on her wrists, cutting the zip ties with a knife. Gentle hands, despite the violence surrounding them. "Jasmine, open your eyes. It's me." She did. Jae-sung knelt before her, his suit jacket gone, his white shirt splattered with blood that wasn't his. His hair was disheveled, his eyes wild with something between rage and relief. Behind him, bodies lay motionless. Min-ho and 2 their guards were securing the perimeter. "Are you hurt?" Jae-sung's hands moved over her, checking for injuries, his touch feather light despite the trembling in his fingers. "Did they touch you? Did they—" "I'm fine," Jasmine managed. "You came." "Of course I came." He pulled her up, steadying her when her legs threatened to give out. "We need to leave. Now." He half carried her to a car waiting outside, shielding her body with his, as they moved through the warehouse. Only when they were safely in the back seat, doors locked and car speeding away, did he finally release her. Jasmine looked at him. Really looked. At the blood on his clothes, at the cold fury still radiating from him, at the gun holstered at his hip that he hadn't bothered to conceal. "You killed them," she said quietly. "Yes." No hesitation, no apology. "Because of me." "Because they took what was mine." His jaw clenched. "And then I realized, you're not mine. Not anymore. I set you free. And all I did was make you vulnerable. This is my fault, Jasmine. I introduced you to my world, made you a target, and then abandoned you without enough protection because I was—" He stopped, his composure cracking. "Because I was a coward." "Why?" Jasmine's voice broke. "Why did you end the contract? Why did you push me away?" Jae-sung turned to face her fully, and the raw emotion in his eyes stole her breath. "Because you terrified me. Because for 10 years, I've been untouchable. I built walls so high that nothing could hurt me. And then you walked into my life and slapped me across the face and somehow saw through every defense I had. His voice dropped to a whisper. You made me feel human again. And that was the most dangerous thing anyone had ever done to me. So you threw me away? I tried to protect you from me. From this. He gestured to the blood on his shirt. You deserve better than a man who kills people in warehouses. You deserve a normal life, a safe life. Stop telling me what I deserve, Jasmine interrupted, anger flaring hot and bright. You don't get to make that decision for me. You don't get to decide that I'm better off without you. You are better off. I watched you kill 3 men to save me, Jasmine said, her voice shaking with emotion. And you want to know what I felt? Not horror, not disgust, relief. Because you came for me, because I'm not nobody to you. Jae-sung's breath caught. You're not nobody. You've never been nobody. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration and longing warring in his expression. When you slapped me, you didn't see the chairman. You saw a man who needed to be put in his place. And in that moment, I was just a man, not a monster, not a crime lord, just Jae-sung. And I haven't been just Jae-sung since I was 20 years old. Then be him now, Jasmine said. Be the man who protected me even after he pushed me away. If I do that, if we do this, you'll always be in danger. His voice was anguished. My enemies will use you against me. You'll have targets on your back for as long as we're together. Then get away from this life, Jasmine said simply. But don't ask me to walk away because you're scared. I'm not scared. You're terrified, she corrected. You're terrified that caring about me makes you weak. But Jae-sung, it makes you human. And that's what I fell in love with, not the chairman, not the billionaire, the man underneath who still remembers what it means to care. The words hung between them, fell in love with, impossible to take back. Jae-sung stared at her like she'd spoken in a language he didn't understand. You love me? After everything I've done? After I blackmailed you, forced you to serve me, exposed you to violence? Yes, Jasmine said, and the certainty in her voice surprised even her. I love you, and I think you love me too, even if you're too stubborn to admit it. I do, he breathed, the confession tearing out of him like something painful. God help me, I do. But Jasmine, I can't give you normal. I can't give you safe. All I can offer is you, she interrupted. That's all I want. Just you. For a long moment, Jae-sung just looked at her, and then, slowly, carefully, like he was afraid she might shatter, he reached out and cupped her face with his blood-stained hands. If you stay, he said quietly, everything changes. No more contract. No more employee. Then I stay, Jasmine whispered. Jae-sung's thumb traced her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. I can give you money, set you up anywhere in the world, new identity, new life, complete safety. I don't want money. I don't want to run. She turned her face into his palm. I want you. And I want to build something real here. On my terms. Your terms, he repeated, something like wonder in his voice. I open my restaurant. With clean money that I earn. You don't buy it for me. You invest in me as a partner. And you start legitimizing your business. I'm not asking you to be a saint, but I need to know you're trying to be better. Jae-sung's smile was slow and genuine, and heartbreakingly beautiful. You're negotiating with me. Someone has to keep you honest. He laughed, actually laughed, and the sound was like sunlight breaking through clouds. You slapped the monster awake, he said. Now you're stuck with the man underneath. Can you live with that? Can you live with a woman who won't bow to you, who'll call you out when you're being an ass, who'll demand better from you every single day? I'm counting on it, Jae-sung murmured. And then, finally, he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and fierce and tasted like blood and fear and relief, all tangled together. Jasmine kissed him back with everything she had, all her anger, all her fear, all her impossible love for this dangerous, complicated man who'd somehow become her home. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jae-sung rested his forehead against hers. "I'll make you a deal," he said. "You build your restaurant. I'll start cleaning up my empire, and we'll figure out how to exist in both worlds, yours and mine, together." "Together," Jasmine agreed. "But Jae-sung? Next time you try to push me away for my own good, I'm slapping you again." His grin was wicked. "Promise?" Thank you for watching till the end. If this story touched you, inspired you, or took you on a journey, don't leave without hitting the like button. Subscribe if you haven't, and switch your notifications on. You don't want to miss what I got coming up. Make sure to drop in the comment section where in the world you're watching from. We're building a global community of story lovers here, and your voice is part of it. See you in the next one. Have a great day.